What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 532 of #AskGSM here today for Wednesday, February 7th, 2024. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week so far. I thought we would come on here this week, have a grand old time, not have a ton of talk about coming off the newsworthy week of Royal Rumble weekend and the press conference stuff and the Vince allegations, and then SmackDown happened. And I'm thinking, well, fuck. We're going to have to talk all about this on hashtag on Wednesday, WrestleRant Radio as well. So just a heads up on that. We will be talking more in depth about the Cody Rock Roman situation on WrestleRant Radio this week, as everyone is. The show usually goes up on Thursdays, not this week. It just makes more sense to do it on Fridays, scheduling-wise, we're doing it on Friday anyway, but it actually just makes more sense to do it Friday this week regardless, coming off the press conference on Thursday. So all of what I say here today might be irrelevant come Friday, after the press conference has happened and we know Rock and Roman's official or not official, whatever the case might be. But just keep an eye out for that. If you do want to send in a question to this show, you could do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section in this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So we'll start with the YouTube questions per usual. We got a shit ton of them, so let's get started. I have not yet organized the questions again for the second straight week. I apologize. So just keep that in mind. If you hear a question now and you don't hear your next question after that, I'll probably get back to it later on in the video. So just keep a heads up on that. First question from Chris W. on YouTube. Their question was, let's say Batista is not the one to dethrone Triple H at WrestleMania 21. Can you think of anyone during that era of Raw that would be suitable for that spot? The only other two people that come to mind, Batista made the most sense because they were already teasing tension within Evolution in the first couple of months of 2005. Batista was ready for that spot. They were organically getting behind him. So that's like the equivalent of today, where you have someone like Cody who's organically ready. That's the story. And they go in a different direction instead. Imagine if fucking Hogan... I mean, Hogan was actually at that Mania, albeit not wrestling, right? He was in the Stone Cold... No, wait, was he at that Mania? I don't remember. I'm pretty sure he went into the Hall of Fame on that Mania. No, he did come out of that Mania, Mania 21, to interrupt Muhammad Hassan and attack him, I think. So he was at that Mania. But imagine Hogan coming in to face Triple H on that show for the World Heavyweight Championship, not winning the Rumble. Batista still wins the Rumble, but he just gives up his spot for Hulk Hogan instead. Fucking dumb. We'll get to that Rock Roman Rhodes stuff later, but as far as Batista goes, if it wasn't Batista, the only other person that makes sense was Randy Orton. Randy Orton was the original plan. I'm pretty sure that's been confirmed in the years since. I mean, it's pretty clear if you watch the show from that period. You know, Evolution turned on Orton. They took the World Heavyweight Championship from him pretty quickly soon after he won it in September of 2004. He was on the chase for many, many months. He was over as a babyface, probably not as over as they thought he would be. He just wasn't really doing well in the role. The booking didn't help either. So I don't know if it was a case of people weren't getting behind him the way they thought they would be, or they also just weren't booking him right, so it was kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, he's not over. Well, it's because you're booking him like shit. He lost the championship within a month. They turned on him. I think Team Orton won at Survivor Series, right? I don't remember. Pretty sure he won at Survivor Series. But still, he failed at New Year's Revolution, and he got one more shot at the Rumble, right? And then he lost there. So I think Orton would have been the original plan had Batista not been getting organically over, and Batista was the far better option at that point. It just made more sense. People were more behind him. Not that he was the fresher face. Orton was more in-ring ready than Batista was for that top spot, but Batista was just kind of like the guy. He felt like the guy. He lived up to the hype. He felt like he was the guy, if that makes sense. So the only other option would have been Orton, unless you give the Rumble win to Cena, and Cena, instead of choosing JBL, and it's not like he and JBL had this long-term story. They built up a feud going into WrestleMania, and he beat JBL for his first World Championship. Cena wins the Rumble instead, and then he goes on to face Triple H and win the World Heavyweight Championship. That wouldn't have made as much sense. I mean, I guess Benoit did it the year before, but Cena was on SmackDown, Triple H was on Raw. They had no prior history. Again, Cena and JBL didn't either, to my knowledge. You're just saying if anyone else was remotely ready for that spot, who would it have been? Either Orton or Cena. I'm glad they went with Batista. Obviously, he was the correct choice. But if it wasn't him, say he got hurt or something, Orton probably would have been the backup plan, and then Cena maybe a distant third if they shifted him from SmackDown to Raw in time for WrestleMania, which he went to Raw anyway, coming out of WrestleMania regardless. Mike does it from YouTube. Should WWE do more cross-promotion with TNA? Maybe sending Natalia or Liv Morgan to challenge Jordynne Grace for the Knockouts Women's Championship. Yeah, it would be cool. I don't expect it. I saw Jordynne Grace say in an interview, I would love to face Bianca for the TNA Knockouts title on a TNA pay-per-view. That is never going to fucking happen. I highly, highly doubt they are ever sending a star the caliber of Bianca Belair to TNA. And I like TNA a lot. I'm happy they've rebranded. They're doing great stuff right now. They're simply not sending Bianca Belair to TNA. That's just not going to happen. Maybe a lower-level star. I mean, listen, the only cross-promotion we've gotten recently was with All Japan Pro Wrestling, and they sent Charlie fucking Dempsey, who I like a lot. Charlie Dempsey's great. But it's Charlie Dempsey. It's like a lower-level guy in NXT. And he ended up losing to their champion. He got some good matches in on there, I heard, over there. Lost, the title match, obviously. They're not sending one of their bigger stars to go do a match in another promotion and lose. Jordynne Grace, the thing with her was she came in to do a match for WWE and she lost, but it's not like she was pinned. Would TNA have said, it's all right if you use her and she can get pinned? Probably. I mean, they've done that with AEW a bunch where they've used the TNA guys in AEW, and almost all the time they've gotten pinned in AEW for the most part. So TNA probably would have done that anyway. But it's not like Jordynne Grace was brought in to face Bianca one-on-one and she lost. And it's like, all right, you did that for us, so now we're going to have to use Bianca on our show to get the win back, blah, blah, blah. That's just not happening. So, again, should they? Sure. WWE, the thing with them is they really don't have anything to benefit from in working with TNA. Stuff like the Rumble's cool because it's a one-off. It gets a cool surprise appearance. Does it really benefit WWE in any way? No, it's a nice little surprise. But it's not like they're making more money from using Jordynne Grace or any of their talent, really. It's not like they have any massive stars on their roster. I don't need to see Nick Nemeth back in WWE anytime soon. So, no, I don't expect it, but in theory, would it be cool? Sure, absolutely. Back to Chris W. What do you know about the WWE Little Rock riot in 1997? Honestly, not much. I quickly looked it up before I hit record here to kind of refresh my memory on what it was. I'm sure I've heard about it before. I'm sure I have. Nothing really comes to mind thinking about it right now before I looked up that article. And I thought you might have been referring to the Shawn Michaels beatdown incident by the Army men or whatever, the Navy, the Marines, I think it was, the Shawn Michaels Marines incident. That's not what this was, I don't think. This was a completely separate thing where people at a Little Rock show, for those unfamiliar, and again, Chris has more of the details. You can just look it up, but Chris obviously has more of the details. That I believe people went to this house show thinking it was a Raw and they rioted. So, weird situation. This is well after the territory days were over, so it's not like this was in the fucking 70s or 80s. This is in the late 90s, right before the Attitude Era really kicked in, so I thought that was interesting. But no, I've never really, if I have heard about it, it was not memorable enough for me to remember it before you asked me about it. So, anyway, Bill, his first question here, Bill M. from YouTube, he says, Well, Graham, I don't know what to say about the ending of SmackDown. I really don't. I saw you were similar in a tweet in your reaction on WrestleRant. Multiple questions here, but I have to get your thoughts. 1, is this a huge disrespect to Cody to have him vacate the slot he should have against Roman Reigns? 2, how will The Rock even be in-ring ready? And 3, we'll possibly find out Thursday at the press conference, but it is the only way to make the outcome of Rock versus Roman up in the air to have it non-title, but for the rights of tribal chief. Cody mentioned taking everything from Roman. Surely, if it's for the title, a Roman win is clear and obvious. Exactly. I'm very disappointed in WWE for this. I thought Cody looked broken as he walked away. I get CM Punk's injury has caused the change-up, but I think this is a huge mistake. Do you agree? Like you said, a lot of questions. Is it a huge mistake? Yes. Now, I know Rock and Roman, I've already talked at length about this on Twitter in reviews. I did a whole rant on this. If you want my, fresh off take of what happened on SmackDown last week, I did a SmackDown audio review on Saturday, went up late Saturday night, and it's like a 52-minute video. Now, was the entire 52 minutes me ranting about this shit? No. A good 30 minutes of it are, and how they can fix it and what they can do. But I was pretty fucking pissed, as many people were. Now, there are obviously bigger issues in the world than what happens in WWE. I understand that. It's going to become one of those things where I feel like we are definitely getting Rock and Reigns at WrestleMania. I'm just reserved to the idea that we're getting that match, and I'm just going to deal with it, as we wrestling fans do. Some people may not watch, they might not go to WrestleMania. That is the minority of people. The people that do go will boo. Not everyone, but there will be some that boo. How many? I don't know. That's a whole other question. Would it be the overwhelming majority? I don't think so, because I think enough people, casual fans, watch the product, go to the product that like The Rock, that don't really care about Cody getting sidestepped here, and Rock getting the title shot instead, and they're going to cheer The Rock. Choose The Rock as the contender and cheer for The Rock over Cody. Not boo Cody, but still cheer The Rock. That wasn't your question. As far as this being disrespectful to Cody, of course it is. I saw the report from Fightful, and they're an outlet I trust with their news and stuff. They had mentioned that Cody actually went to WWE before they did the angle on SmackDown to say, listen, this probably won't go over well, and they did it anyway. And apparently he was somber in the arena after they filmed that segment on SmackDown. Now, it's not like he threw a fit and walked out. Him being somber, maybe he was having a bad day, who knows. He even said on Raw last week he was having a tough time during Rumble weekend and all this other sort of stuff, and the fans helped him get him through it, all this other sort of stuff, whatever. So that doesn't really mean much. But the fact that he apparently went to WWE to tell them, listen, I get why you're doing this. I'm a company guy. I'll do it. But it probably will not go over well. And they still fucking did it anyway. Speaks volumes. No, they're not going to not do something just because Cody told them not to. But he did advise them of the reaction it would get. And sure enough, that was the reaction that it got. And it ended up getting on social media and on Raw the following Monday and blah, blah, blah. So it is disrespectful to Cody. I mean, this guy's been talking about finishing his story and, you know, this guy deserves that. This person deserves this. I'm not really talking about deserving because everyone on the roster deserves something. It's not really a matter of deserving. It's more a matter of, does it make sense? Rock and Roman as a match does make sense, the whole tribal chief thing. I'm going to kind of merge all your questions here. No, Rock and Roman being non-title would be fucking stupid. Like you said, it's pretty obvious that Rock is not winning. I know I saw the report also from Fightful last weekend that Rock may even lobby to put himself over. I'm not saying that's without the realm of possibility. I still highly doubt they would do that. Could they? I mean, they definitely could. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I just severely doubt they would actually go through with that. That would be incredibly fucking stupid. Regardless of what the outcome is, even if Rock were to turn heel and they were to do a double turn, who gives a shit? They're two part-timers. They're never on the show. What is The Rock going to lead the Bloodline on SmackDown every week? Give me a break. So, I mean, I like the idea in theory if Rock were to show up more. But even then, like, the first person to beat Roman in almost 5 years should be someone who can benefit. Oh, Cody's already a made guy. Yeah, he is. But Cody would gain way more from being the guy to pin Roman one-on-one and take that title from the fucking Rock. And you're not going to have a Night 2 main event, which is what Rock and Roman would be. For anyone saying, oh, do the Night 2, Night 1 thing where you can have Rock and Roman on Night 1 and Cody and Roman on Night 2, they're not going to do that either. Rock is not headlining Night 1 of WrestleMania. Could he? Yeah, in theory, absolutely. Triple H opened WrestleMania 30 for a match. That he opened WrestleMania 30. And that was a guy that was notorious for always headlining WrestleMania. So yeah, they absolutely could. But do I think it's within Rock's ego to headline Night 1 and give the spotlight to Cody instead on that show? No, I think he would want to go on Night 2. And that's the bigger money match of the two anyway. So that's kind of the issue that you fall into there. And Cody going on Night 1 and winning the championship, they would be fucking dumb because it would make the title feel like an afterthought going into Night 2 where Roman's not the champion. And then Roman at that point would definitely win. Listen, this is not 2011, 2012, 2013. I do not need to see The Rock beat Roman and then run it back. I just need a one and done and let's move on. I've always wanted to see just a match. The feud as well. I mean, even the match. I'm more excited about the promos for Rock and Roman than I am the match. That has always been the case. The match will be just worse and worse as it goes on, the further that we drag this out. But I would still reserve it for next year, save it for next year, because I do not want it this year. The Cody thing makes more sense, blah, blah, blah. But what was I even saying? With Rock and Roman, the promos might still be good. They're not going to really show up to promote the match. I severely doubt that as well. They might make the match official on Thursday, tomorrow, and then they have 2 months to really build it up. Yeah, through what, videos? I mean, I guess. Again, if Roman and Rock are not there to promote the match, it's hard to really get all that excited about it. If it was like an undercard match or a non-title and the focus was on the World Championship, that makes sense. But if this is the central storyline focal point on SmackDown for the next 2 fucking months, that takes away from the championship, it takes away from WrestleMania, it takes away from SmackDown. No one really benefits from that. We're not even really getting much of a feud in that case. Again, if it wasn't for the title. But if you're going to do it non-title, then Roman shouldn't even be champion. I've said it a million times before, I'll say it again. Cody should have won last year against Roman Reigns. We would not have had this issue if that was the case. Cody would already be champion, would have lost the belt by now, blah, blah, blah. Roman could have faced Rock, night 1, night 2, main event, whatever, non-title. You do the match, Roman wins, we move on. They're not even doing that because Roman's already the fucking champion. That's the issue, the dilemma they find themselves in right now. Will Rock even be in-ring ready? That was one of your other questions. I don't think so, no. I don't think so. If he agreed to do the match, listen, we don't know. Meltzer said January 3rd is when he agreed to do the match. I still don't believe that. But has he been training in the ring for the past month? Maybe. I mean, I know he came back to SmackDown in September. Maybe he's been secretly training in the ring. Very possible. Rock is still not an active athlete. He's very athletic. He's very much in shape, obviously, and works out all the time. That is different from being in-ring ready. Even training in the ring is not the same as coming back to the ring after fucking 10-plus years out of the ring. Punk just got hurt in the Royal Rumble. Punk is very injury-prone, but so is Rock. Rock did not wrestle regularly back in 2011, 2012, 2013, and still got hurt in both the Mania matches with John Cena at Mania 28 and Mania 29. Both fucking times he got hurt. I mean, I honestly have no expectation that he won't get hurt again in this upcoming match with Roman. I assume he got gassed in 10 minutes in a fucking promo segment with Jinder Mahal on Raw a month ago. Again, what is stopping him from getting gassed this time in an actual match 5-10 minutes in? And getting a 5-10 minute main event at Mania after all the hype for Rock and Roman would be absolute bullshit. That would be garbage. Do I want a 30-minute classic with them? No. But that's why you need this match as not an undercard attraction. You can even have it headline night 1. But to have a closeout night 2, a 10-minute match where Rock probably is not winning, it extends the Roman run even further, which is awful, and the match sucks, that's just no one really benefits from that whatsoever. Nobody. And Cody is still left on the side looking like an idiot for choosing to face the other champion, despite literally pointing at Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble saying, I choose you. And then 6 days later, he decides to change his mind and turn around and say, all right, Rock, you can have this spot. What could Rock possibly have promised him? And maybe we'll find out on SmackDown or at the press conference. We don't know. What could Rock have possibly have said to convince Cody in storyline, hey, pal, can I get this one? You can take him another time. You even said, Cody said, I'll take the title from you. I will take everything from you, but not at WrestleMania. Then when? That just doesn't make any sense. The whole thing has been building to Mania. It started at Mania. He returned at Mania 2 years ago. Go full circle, have him win, and move the fuck on. If Rock faces Roman, yeah, it does kind of spill the beans that if Cody still wants to finish his story. The story is with the title, not really Roman Reigns, but he literally said he wanted to take everything from Roman Reigns, and that was part of his story. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what he said on SmackDown last week. Now, how can he do that if Roman is no longer champion by the time he contends for the title in 2035? You know what I mean? Like, that just doesn't make any sense. If Rock were to win the belt or someone else, in theory, does he not have enough confidence in Rock to beat Roman Reigns? Like, at least last year, his feud wasn't really with Roman. It was just winning the championship. Cody didn't give a fuck going into Mania last year who was champion when he won the Royal Rumble. And that makes sense. And he was totally fine in storyline with facing Sami Zayn. He was endorsing Sami to beat Roman in Elimination Chamber so he could face him at WrestleMania. That did not happen. Roman was the better foil. I'm glad they did that. But then Roman beat him, and now we're dealing with this dilemma now. But my point is, Cody again said on SmackDown last week, oh, you cheated me out of that win. I had you beat, and you know it. I still want to avenge that loss and prove to myself that I can beat you. So the feud now is with Roman. It wasn't a year ago so much as it is now. Now it has to be Roman who he beats to win that title. Not at SummerSlam, not at Mania next year, Mania this year. And I've seen the rumblings, no, not official reports, but from fans, and I agreed with it. The MSG thing would be cool. That is probably the only exception I can say that I might be okay with, Cody winning the belt at an MSG show. But what would that even be? They've announced all their pay-per-views for the next number of months, maybe SummerSlam, but that's in another 6 months. Oh, great. But would it be like a WWE Network Peacock live special? I mean, I suppose. But when is that even? I mean, that is the only exception I might be okay with, because part of the story is the fact that Dusty, quote unquote, won the WWE title in the Garden, but had it taken away from him right afterward in that arena. But WWE doesn't run pay-per-views at the Garden. They do Raws and SmackDowns there on occasion. They did SmackDown there last summer, and it was great. They could always do that, but I don't know, man. After what happened last year, to me, it's got to be a WrestleMania, and I'm just pretty confident that it will not be happening at WrestleMania, if at all. At this point, it probably will not be happening at all. The Rock returned at the worst possible time to make this match happen. He had every opportunity, and it was on him, not WWE. It's not like Rock wanted to come back and WWE was saying no. I mean, they should this year, but 37, 38, 39, all opportunities where he could have come back, and he said no. And if they always had the idea of Rock working Mania 40 after Roman beat Roman beat Cody last year, then don't build up to Cody saying he wants to avenge Roman Reigns and plant the seeds and get people excited for it, and then not fucking deliver. That's just bullshit. I mean, there's been other people. Roman has beaten literally everyone on the roster, but none of those people are saying, I'm going to go back after Roman Reigns and finish my story. Drew McIntyre hasn't. He has unfinished business with the Bloodline, obviously, but it's not like he just wants to win a title in front of a crowd. His story is not Roman Reigns. It could be, but they haven't made it his story. That's not what it is. Even Sami Zayn's not like, oh, I'm going to be the one to beat Roman Reigns for that belt. He didn't say that on Monday. He hasn't said that at all, because it does not make sense. No, I mean, they can make it make sense. But Cody has specifically said he wants to avenge that loss to Roman from Mania and work his way back up to that point. Cody is the guy to beat Roman. I've said this for 2 years now. And they're just purposely not going in that direction. And to wait any longer might turn people on Cody. The match we get instead might be awful. And to have Cody win back-to-back Rumbles and not win either title shot, and having him win the World Heavyweight Championship I'm not overly fond of either, is also very stupid. So I have a lot of issues with what we saw on SmackDown. Maybe some of it might be resolved tomorrow at the press conference. I don't think it'll be resolved. I don't think a triple threat is the way either. Because Roman, when he finally does lose that championship, it should be one-on-one. And Cody beating Roman in a one-on-one match would make more sense. And a triple threat, cool, but it's like he's still unbeaten one-on-one. He hasn't lost a singles match since 2019. Not a triple threat or a four-way. He lost a fucking tag match last summer. Now he needs to be beaten in a singles match since 2019, since December of 2019. That's not a singles match. Oh, then that would save him and Rock. No, I don't need to see Rock and Roman is the match to do. Not a triple threat. It's the same thing with the Becky issue from 2019 35, from WrestleMania 35. Becky and Ronda was the money match. That was the marquee match. You watered it down by adding Charlotte in there. It wasn't as good of a match. The feud was way worse by adding Charlotte in there. The moment wasn't as big. They didn't ruin the Becky moment. It was still big, but they very much watered that down by doing what they did. And I was not fond of that at all. Do not make that same mistake 5 years later. Anyway, next question from @6FoxPuff on YouTube. Their question was, do you think Cody should just challenge Roman at Elimination Chamber? Multiple wrestlers have used their Rumble win early at the pay-per-view PLE before. That was the other option I've seen people say. And that was my first thought, actually, when I heard Cody say, I'm going to finish my story, but not at WrestleMania. No, I really don't want to see that. I don't think they're going to do that anyway. So they had Drew attack Cody to close out Raw this week. I think that was to set up a match at Chamber. I prefer that. And then Cody and Drew, we don't even know if Drew is staying, so to do that match now makes sense. Maybe that could build a Drew getting added. I mean, I'd be more okay, and I hate to say this, but with a Rollins, Cody, Drew triple threat than a Rock, Roman, Rhodes triple threat. Because if Roman retains, then Cody loses 2 years in a row. You kind of are sacrificing. Rock is not going to be in a triple threat. It's got to be Rock and Roman one-on-one. No triple threats, no tags, like none of that dumb bullshit. It's got to be a singles match. You can't serve all, please everyone by doing every option here. By incorporating, what's the expression where you try to please everyone but you end up pleasing nobody by serving all masters type thing? It's some sort of expression like that. And it's just not going to work. So it would have to be Rock and Roman one-on-one. Do the triple threat for the World Heavyweight Championship. I don't like it, but it is what it is. Maybe that way Drew can pin Rollins to win the World Heavyweight Championship. Yeah, it wastes Cody's title shot 2 years in a row. I don't even know how you earned Drew a title opportunity if he's been losing all his high-profile matches this past year. I don't know. But anyway, no, I don't like Cody winning the championship on, 2 weeks' notice, because they haven't announced the match for Elimination Chamber. I guess they could on Thursday or Friday. But Cody's probably facing Drew on that show. And then Cody would not main event WrestleMania. I mean, because if he does, then who does he face in Mania? Drew? That's a SmackDown title. That doesn't make any sense, because Rollins is the world champion on Raw. So why would... And then also, who does Rollins face? I mean, I guess Gunther's an option, but I don't think they're doing that. That's been my whole thing. Oh, who does Rollins face if not Cody? Well, yeah, fucking Gunther. There's a lot of people on Raw Rollins can face. A decent amount that would make sense. So, I don't know. But, that's what I would do. I would not have Cody do it at Chamber. To waste this massive moment, and yeah, in front of a big stadium show would be sick. It wouldn't be a waste, but... It would not be the same as it would be at WrestleMania, and Mania is next month. That's exactly why I didn't want Sami Zayn to win the title last year. You save a big moment like that for Mania, and then we get a rematch at Mania, and that's stupid. Like, that's not going to really help anything. It's like, I didn't want Sami Zayn in the main event last year. That just wouldn't have made any sense. Him doing he was in the main event, actually, just not for the world title. And what they did with him and Owens instead made way more sense. That was the match to do, and I was glad I was right about that. But you don't have, I know they've had, Eddie beat Brock before, No Way Out 04. All right, cool, but this is different. Brock was champion for a couple months. Roman's been champion for a couple of years. Almost 4 fucking years. You don't waste a moment like that on the pay-per-view before and then build up a last-minute feud for him going to WrestleMania. That makes no sense. It's stupid. I don't like that at all either. So there's a lot of options, and none of them are very good. I said this in my SmackDown audio review, I believe, last week, but it's like that scene from Endgame, or Infinity War, rather, where Doctor Strange was like, I see all the possible futures for how we can win this war against Thanos, and there's only one outcome that we can do. Only one. And to me, it's just holding off on Rock and Roman for another time and doing Cody and Roman instead. But I don't think they're going to do that. Chris W., back to him from YouTube, he says, as you know, I'm a huge horror slasher fan, movie fan, and one of my favorite series is the Scream franchise. While I love the first 2 movies, I absolutely cannot stand the third one, where the setting is in Hollywood. I was fortunate enough to see Scream 4 opening night in 2011, and thought it was thoroughly entertaining as a nice welcome back for the franchise and Wes Craven himself, may he rest in peace, he said. I was not a fan of Scream 5 as I feel it was a blatant remake of the original. I saw Scream 6 again on opening night last year, and I thought it was a great movie and an even better experience to watch in the theater, especially with the final fight between Ghostface and Gale Weathers. My question is, are you a fan of the franchise, and if so, how would you rank the movies from best to worst? I'm actually not a big Scream guy. I never really have been. I've watched a handful of, I don't know, I would prefer the Halloween stuff or Friday the 13th. Those movies are probably worse overall. I prefer those sort of movies. I like Scream 1 a lot. Scream 1's obviously a classic. It's a fantastic movie. None of the other ones really measure up, obviously. I did not watch 2. I did not watch 3. I tried to watch 4 a few years ago. I ended up just turning it off. I just was not interested at all. It was just not good. But I did watch 5 and I did watch 6. So going forward, I will watch the new ones that come out. 5 I thought fucking sucked. And I know we've talked about this before. John Ritland, shout out to him. He asked a couple questions. I'll talk about him later. We've talked about this before. I think he liked that one more than the most recent one. I was reversed. I hated 5. I thought that sucked. And I thought the most recent one was great. I agree with you. I thought 6 was great. In New York City, nice change of pace, some cool scenes, pretty over-the-top ending with the big reveal and shit, whatever. But, I liked that movie a lot. I thought that was a really, really good movie. I think they should just abandon making any more movies going forward. If they're not going to have the cast they were building off of in the last movie. I'm not even really a big fan of the main character in the new franchise. I just feel like she's not a great actress and she shows literally no emotion. Jenna Ortega I like a lot, but you can't really make... The whole last 2 movies were based on that main girl. And to recast her would be silly. And if Jenna Ortega is not in it, then why even fucking bother? So I hope they just don't even make it. who even gives a shit at this point? But how would I rank them? From the 3 that I've seen in full, 1, 6, and then 5. I haven't seen 2 through 4 in their entirety, so I can't really say much for them. But maybe at some point I'll rewatch those, or I'll watch those for the first time, give my thoughts. Because that was the thing, when 5 came out, I saw a lot of people saying, oh, it's the best one since 1. You know what? That was the best one since 1, other than 6. Then I honestly fear for the franchise. And then I fear what those other movies look like, because 2 through 4 must have been fucking terrible if they were even somehow better than, or somehow worse than 5, because 5 was not good either. Let's see. Jordan B. from YouTube, their question was, I saw a post in one of the wrestling Facebook groups I'm following. The post mentioned how they are not a fan of Shawn Michaels having steel cage matches on NXT, ending with just pinfall or submission and completely leaving escaping the cage option. The post mentioned how they missed the early days of the 70s, 80s, and 90s when the steel cage matches only ended by escaping the cage. My first question is, how do you feel about Shawn Michaels only having these steel cage matches in NXT and by pinfall and submission? My second question is, how would you feel if WWE decided to one day go back to only having steel cage matches and by only escaping the cage? Sorry for this long question. No worries at all. That's an interesting question. I honestly couldn't tell you of all the steel cage matches that AEW has done, WWE has done in the last number of years, how many of them have had both options and how many of them had only one option, whether it be pinfall, submission, or escaping the cage. That sort of stuff doesn't really bother me. I would actually prefer all options because you think that it can end at any time. The cage, the thing about the cage, it's like, all right, what's the point of the cage if they could just pin each other inside the cage? Well, it's to keep them in, prevent them from leaving. And then if you try to leave, then, I think that was that not the, I don't know. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure when they were doing cage matches back in the 70s, 80s, and whatever, you couldn't leave the cage. The whole point of the cage was to keep them in. And you had to win by pinfall or submission, no count out. And nowadays, there's interference anyway. The cage matches actually invite interference, which is fucking stupid. In WWE, they have been for the past decade plus. Completely ruins the stipulation. And at that point, just do a Hell in a Cell match where it kind of limits the interference, even though we've seen interference in those matches too. But still, it doesn't really matter to me, to be perfectly honest. I don't really care about, it has to be a pinfall or submission, or it has to be escaping the cage, or it has to be both. It doesn't really bother me. So, for some people, they want to be more old school and only allowed one. I like when there's both. If I had a preference, I would allow both, pinfall, submission, and escaping the cage, because it gives you more options as to how it could end. And they don't have to take the pinfall loss. If it's including pinfall, they could also just escape the cage. I like that too. So, you also have the drama when you don't have the same drama when it's just pinfall or submission. When you have the escape the cage option, you also have the drama of two people trying to leave the cage at the same time. One through the door, one over the top, or both over the top on different sides of the ring. And then it's like, well, who's going to reach the ground first? That's also an aspect of those matches I really like. So I actually enjoy having all rules allowed as far as pinfall, submission, and escape the cage. So it opens up more possibilities. Micah does it from YouTube. Their question was, last week you talked about the WWE press conference. My question is, if CM Punk was given the Royal Rumble win instead of Cody Rhodes, and he knew his tricep was torn and probably going to need time off, if CM Punk had given the Vince allegation question, do you think he would have handled it professionally given his past history with Vince McMahon? Or do you think we would have had another situation similar to Brawl Out but in a WWE setting? That's a great question because I was wondering that too. I don't think that had to do with their decision to have Cody go over. But there is going to come a time at some point. WWE does press conferences after every single pay-per-view at this point, including the lower level ones. They didn't do them in the past after Fastlane or Payback, but they did this year. They did them after Fastlane and Payback. So they definitely could if they wanted to. And what I mean is, if they do them after every single show, and if Punk continues to wrestle on these bigger shows, at some point they're going to have him work a press conference. Maybe not quite now, because he's coming off the AEW run. The Brawl Out thing was less than 6 months ago. So they don't have to have him work a press conference now, and he's hurt anyway. But at some point, he probably will have to. And the Vince allegation thing was interesting. At that point, I said this before, I said this last week, they should have just canceled the fucking press conference. It served no real purpose. If he wasn't going to, not even address it, a no comment would have sufficed. But like I said last week, won't go into more detail about it. I already ranted about it enough. The whole, we got to focus on the positive bullshit was just a cop-out answer. So that was lame, especially surrounding such a serious situation, I don't know how Punk would have answered it, honestly. I think Cody answered it perfectly. I thought Cody, especially as a former EVP, and I'm not even bothered by the fact that he was asked it, because again, he's a top guy, pretty much their John Cena. I understand. CM Punk being asked about it, of course he would be asked about it. You probably know. The funny thing is, when you say that, we may have had, I said Brawl Out was less than 6 months ago. I meant Brawl In, obviously. I get those incidents mixed up in the names and whatnot. The funny thing is, if we had a situation where Punk was out there after winning the Rumble, it may have been literally, not the exact same thing, but it could have played out very fucking similar to Brawl Out from a year and a half ago. Punk got hurt in that match with Moxley. So he came into that press conference, not excusing his behavior, because it was pretty, embarrassing, obviously. Punk went into that press conference already fucking pissed, and he probably knew his arm was torn, and he probably knew he was either taking time off or he was just pissed that he got himself hurt, but he didn't know to what extent he was hurt. Maybe, I don't know. But he was definitely hurt that night. He would have walked into that press conference on Saturday of the Rumble hurt. Same exact thing. Serious situation going around, so a little bit different, obviously. The Vince stuff is far more serious. But there was a lot of talk going into Brawl All Out that year, which is why it was asked about, was like the stuff, and actually it wasn't asked about. Punk just went off on his own. That's the funny thing. No one even asked the question. He just kind of went in there with his own agenda. But like all the talk during that time was about Punk and the Bucks and the Elite drama and whatever. Now this situation didn't involve Punk, but he's had a lot of run-ins with Vince. We don't even know Vince was on board with him coming back. The report was at one point that he wasn't, that like he had nothing to do with that decision, but Vince doesn't have the same power that he once did, so it didn't really matter, blah, blah, blah. With Punk being there, though, he's been close with Vince before. He knows Vince. Maybe he knows some things that we don't fucking know. We don't know how he would have answered that. He probably, if in my opinion, him being hurt, and the funny thing is, it would have been a very similar situation, because remember at Brawl Out, he wasn't asked a question by him, but he did address him head on. Nick Hausman. Nick Hausman was also at this press conference. Nick Hausman also asked the question, not about the Punk Elite stuff this time, obviously. It was about Vince. He was the one who asked the question about Vince to Cody Rhodes. So replace Rhodes with CM Punk, it probably would have been Hausman, unless the PR people did their homework, and they probably have no clue. They probably would have called on Hausman anyway, not knowing that Hausman was kind of the one that set Punk off inadvertently. It wasn't really necessarily his fault. It was, Hausman even said, I'm not friends with Cole Cabana anymore, blah, blah, blah. That's a whole other story. But Punk may have been set off again, being in a similar setting, seeing Nick Hausman, it being a press conference, he's fucking hurt, and he's pissed, and he gets asked about a serious situation about a guy he doesn't like. It could have been very fucking similar, and Punk probably would have gone bye-bye. The thing is, and I've said this before, would he have attempted to speak as the way that he did at Brawl Out? It was just fucking embarrassing, the way he handled that whole situation. Would he have the balls to do that exact same thing in WWE? I don't think so. I think in WWE, he either has more respect for Triple H, the boss, Paul Levesque, WWE, whatever the fuck, the company. In AEW, I feel like he just kind of had the feeling, he had the vibe, he could do whatever the fuck he wanted. He could say whatever he wanted, and Tony Khan would not get rid of him. If it was up to Tony Khan, CM Punk would probably not be gone. They probably would have kept him. But it was they probably had some pretty damning evidence that forced him to be like, listen, we got to let him go. I have no option here. So I don't know if he would pull that same shit in WWE. It would not have been a good situation, but I don't know if it would have played out as, the same way that the Brawl Out one did. Triple H would not have been out there when Punk was out there, but they probably would have cut Punk off and been like, yeah, we're not even having him answer any questions if he's going to act this way and talk about Vince. So that would have been very interesting. And I would have been in the room for that too. So what an alternate universe we would have ended in had that happened. And I would love to know what that would have looked like, for as ugly as that could have been. Last question from Chris W. here. Hey, Graham, hope you're having a great week. I actually quite enjoyed the NXT pay-per-view on Sunday. Most of the matches were very good, and the main event match and Angle was extremely well done. My question is, do you think this will get some of the heat NXT had months ago, get back some of the heat that NXT had months ago, or do you think it'll be a slow climb back from being cold the last 3 months? I think it's going to be a slow climb. I mean, you mentioned this. You sent in this question before NXT, it looks like. I saw NXT last night. I thought it was a fine show. It was no different than any other episode they've done in the last couple of months, where they have this one great angle with Carmelo Hayes, a pretty good main event, and that's about it. Like, the show was fine. and it was a Fallout show from Vengeance Day, and I thought it was perfectly solid, but there wasn't really anything overly special about it at all. It was a pretty formulaic show, and I enjoy NXT. It's much better, far better than it was, 2 years ago when they first went to NXT 2.0. That shit was awful. The show is still, it's much better now from week to week, but it's not as hot as it was, and I think it wasn't lightning in a bottle, but it really felt like they put their foot on the gas and put forth a better effort to make those shows more must-see during that period in like the summer of 2023, because they knew they needed that TV deal. And they got their TV deal, and they've cooled off since then on purpose. Not like, let's make the product cooler, but like they're not using as many main roster people, and you don't really need the main roster people to make a better show. But it feels like Shawn Michaels is coasting. And the pay-per-views are great. Deadline was fine. I thought that was a good show. I was there for that. I really like Vengeance Day. But it feels like the pay-per-views are better than the actual weekly shows at this point. And No Mercy was a great show, too. I thought this was a very good show, and then they kind of followed it up on Tuesday with a not-so-hot show. They had a couple hot angles with Hayes and Dragunov and whatnot, but that was really about it. So I still feel like it's going to be a slow climb, and I'm not even sure if they can get back to that unless they really put their best effort forward and really started to put all that effort back into making the show hot again. I'm not sure how realistic that is, but I'm just hoping for a good stand and deliver show, because if they're losing Breaker, they lost Tiffany Stratton, who else is left? You look at the roster, I'm not really sure who else is left on that roster that they haven't, already called up, or who they can really feature on that stand and deliver show. I'm not sure. So I guess we'll see. Moving on to the Facebook questions, we go on to Christopher L. from Facebook, also Chris W. obviously from YouTube. His first question was, I might be in the minority, but I don't see why everyone is so over the moon by Dijak. I admit that he's a very athletic big man and a quality wrestler, but I would be lying if I said the guy isn't a one-dimensional bore character-wise. I'm not a big fan of his look, as I feel he's nothing but a rip-off of Arnold and Terminator 2, and his character is always so pissed off without having any reason to be pissed off. What are your thoughts, and do you think NXT needs to do more with Dijak character-wise? Yeah, more character-wise, yeah, listen, Dijak's not the most... It's funny, because his Twitter game's hilarious, but, character-wise, he's not the most charismatic guy. He never has been. Dating back to Ring of Honor, NXT, main roster, whatever. He has never been the jump-out-of-your-seat type guy where it's like, all right, this guy's so great character-wise. But he's improved a lot on the mic, and he's excellent in the ring. And he has a certain presence about him, being as big as he is, and he can do a lot of cool shit. To not do more with him, in my opinion, is criminal. They kind of seem at the certain point where he's just there to put other people over. You put over Dragunov, you put over Wesley, you put over Tony D'Angelo, you put over Eddie Thorpe, you put over Dragunov again on Monday or on Tuesday. He'll probably put over Joe Gacy at some point. Like, he puts over a lot of people. And that's admirable, but I feel like there is more they could be doing with him. And I want to see them do more with him. The guy's great. So I'm a big Dijak fan. I want to see him back on the main roster, but I also did see that report from Fightful a few days ago. His contract's up soon in the spring, summer. I don't know if he would resign. I sure as fuck, if I were him, would not go to AEW at this point. That shit may have sailed a couple of years ago. I just feel like if he were to go there, what would he even do? They would probably put him back in Ring of Honor. His best bet is staying in WWE, if not going to TNA or something like that. And that might be a great use of him, but in WWE, if they actually showed some commitment to making him a bigger player on these shows, then sure. If not, I don't know where he's going to end up. But yeah, I really like Dijak. The character stuff is fine. They've tried to do more with him character-wise, like you said, by giving him the look. Like, they tried to lean into the whole law enforcement thing, because he has a real law enforcement background, I think. Like, he has a degree in, like, something. Law enforcement, whatever it is. Criminal something. Criminal studies, I don't know. He has a degree in one of those things, and they leaned into it as they do with a lot of other characters, and it was kind of weird at first. I feel like they could have just made him Dijak from 4 or 5 years ago, and it would have been fine, but they actually are trying to make him do more character-wise by having him do the whole trench coat and the black glasses thing, and that works for me. I preferred the whole feast your eyes thing from 5 years ago, but that might have been too generic for people even back then, and it might not work in NXT today, so it is what it is to me. His second question, I have really liked the pairing of Daniel Garcia and FTR, since it shows that AEW have a lot of faith in Garcia to be one of the future stars in the company while being a present prodigy. I hope all of this would lead to him eventually being the TNT champion by the end of the year, or if not, having feuded over Konosuke Takeshita over the Continental title. What do you think would be Garcia's future for the company, or what do you think will be Garcia's future for the company, and especially this year? I don't think he's winning the TNT title. They'll probably have him face Christian for the TNT title in the next couple of weeks, I would think. But I would assume that he'll probably face Christian and lose. I like the idea of him facing Takeshita for the the international title? I get the two confused. Is it the international championship? I don't remember. Maybe it's just the AEW Continental. It was the All Atlantic. I don't fucking remember. But Takeshita should beat Cassidy for that belt. It probably will be Roderick Strong, so I can't even say that. But at some point down the road, a Garcia Konosuke International Championship feud, to me, would be totally fine. That would be a fun feud, and him winning that championship would be cool. So, yeah, at some point this year, a run of the TNT title or the International Championship would be cool, but I'm not too convinced that's what's going to happen. It probably is going to be, Roddy holding it for a while. Maybe he can beat Roddy for it, I don't know. But he should hold gold at some point this year. And I'm not talking like the trios titles or the tag titles. To me, Garcia is good enough. And this is a guy that I wasn't overly sold on Garcia a few years ago. Garcia is good enough to be a guy that they can build upon in 2024 as a single star. He has enough momentum. He's getting over. Don't just shoehorn him in a tag team. And I like the FTR stuff as well. I agree with you on that. The FTR pairing and trios, the trios division is cool. But he does need singles gold at some point this year. And to me, it's got to be the International Championship or the TNT title. None of that shit in Ring of Honor either. Oh, he was the fucking pure champion. Who cares? His next question was, what were your thoughts in Meltzer being called out by Malachi Black and Buddy Murphy for falsifying a report of them going back to WWE when their contracts are up? When did that happen? Was that a recent thing? Because I know Malachi has gotten pissed about a lot of what Meltzer's reported and what other people have reported before. He's not happy about that sort of stuff often. He calls out that shit a lot. Maybe that was during Royal Rumble weekend, and that's why I didn't see it. I don't remember. If that did happen, that's, I don't know. Meltzer, sometimes his speculation gets mixed up for reporting, and it's not. It's just him thinking, this isn't a report. I think Malachi, when his contract is up, would leave. Because why the fuck would he not? They're not doing shit with him in AEW, and his wife works for WWE. He would probably get a nice deal going back there, working for Triple H. I don't know. I feel like that just makes the most sense. Same thing with Buddy Matthews. Not that he's had an awful run in AEW, but his soon-to-be wife and Rhea Ripley works in WWE. Triple H liked him. I don't know what he would do in WWE if he were to go back. Malachi has a brighter future, I think, on his own. I don't know. Maybe Meltzer was speculating if he was reporting that and then they called him out on it, then good. Because if it was wrong and, they can't say, or they should be able to say, oh, I'm interested in leaving or I'm not interested in leaving, blah, blah, blah. And if he does end up leaving and Meltzer said that they're probably going to leave and then Malachi said, well, I'm not going to, so stop making shit up, and then he leaves anyway, then that's just a bad look on them. But, I guess we'll find out. I didn't really see that, so I don't really know what you're talking about. And his last question was, who are the nicest wrestlers you have interviewed on the show? It's hard to pick out just one. It's honestly more rare to find someone that wasn't, nice to talk to. I don't know. Kofi's always really, really nice. Kofi's one of my favorite people to talk to. He remembers me for one. And two, he's just fucking funny. So Kofi's one. Bronson Reed's always been really nice. Again, he's another one. I just talked to him over Rumble weekend. He's really nice. He remembers me. He's cool. There's a lot. Cena was pretty sweet. He was pretty cool when I talked to him a few years ago. Regal was fucking awesome. So it's hard to say who was nice, because everyone's nice. It's more what's surreal or who were the coolest conversations, the most organic conversations. Heyman was pretty organic. It felt like we had good chemistry when we chatted a few years ago. He was pretty cool. I don't know. I'm trying to think of other people that come to mind. There's been a lot, obviously, in the last few years alone that have really stood out. Edge honestly is one of my favorite people to talk to. Edge is really fucking nice. And he's someone that probably has never remembered. I've only talked to him a few times, but he probably doesn't remember, oh yeah, we spoke. He probably doesn't remember me or know me, but it feels like when you're talking to him, it feels like he knows who you are. Same thing with Rey Mysterio. So you know what I would say? Edge and Rey Mysterio. Among all the other people I just said, Edge and Ray are probably the two of the top people. That they're actually very nice. You know who's also really nice whenever I've talked to them, and this might surprise you? Goldberg. And I've said this before in that I interviewed him for the first time almost a decade ago, and I was so fucking intimidated because it was around a time where there was like reports that TNA was interested. Maybe they weren't. I don't know. But I was going to ask him about it because it was topical. So he calls me, and usually you're the one that calls. Actually, that's not even really true. Like the PR person typically reaches out, and, you know, you do the interview and blah, blah, blah. And all this other sort of stuff. Goldberg reached out to me from a block number, which makes sense, so I don't call him back and have his phone number, obviously. But he picks up the phone, and he goes, I go, hello, and he goes, is this Graham? I'm looking, like, he sounded just annoyed. And I said, yep, just give me 1 second. He goes, no TNA questions. You hear me? I said, oh, shit. I'm like, oh, yeah, of course. And then I'm like crossing out my TNA questions. Like, fuck, I can't ask him about this, blah, blah, blah. So he was obviously already in a bad mood going into that interview, but he ended up being cool. And I've interviewed him a few times since then, and he was always fucking awesome. So Taker, too. Taker was always really, really cool to chat with. I've talked to him twice now. And Taker, for a guy that was in character for 30 years, was always really nice. Has always been really nice whenever I've talked to him. So he's another one. Another question from Facebook Noel. Do you see any more NXT call-ups to the main roster in the coming weeks? In the coming weeks, probably not. I feel like if they were going to call anyone up, they would have just had them in the Rumble. Like I think Braun Breaker's getting called up, obviously. I know he has an NXT title opportunity next week. That will probably be his swan song. I could see, obviously Tiffany's already in the main roster. I could see Roxanne Perez getting called up soon. But it's probably going to be after WrestleMania, and it should be. I mean, she's currently in the middle of a story with Lyra Valkyria, being frustrated. She wants her opportunity. She'll probably get called up in the draft. That's my prediction. The NXT's losing a lot of talent in a very short span of time, but I do think they're getting called up, or she's getting called up soon. Tony D'Angelo should be up there pretty soon. I don't know how soon, probably around the draft as well. Not before Mania. You said the coming week. So I would think they would just stick it to Tiffany and Braun because they have to have a plan for these people too. If we get Tiffany and Bianca in Mania, great. If we get Braun Breaker and Gunther at Mania, great. You can't call up other people before Mania if you have no plan for them. That's the problem. Like, I'm kind of worried for people like Andrade and Naomi. They brought them back in the Rumble and they're great, but like, what are they going to do at WrestleMania? That's kind of my question. Their second question. Do you see Mercedes finally debuting in AEW this month? No, I don't. I see her debuting next month because it came out, and Andrew Zarian already reported this a couple days ago. It came out this morning, actually, that it's pretty obvious. The big announcement that Tony Khan's going to announce tonight, Dynamite, coming to Boston TD Garden March 13th in about a month. So in 5 weeks, they're doing Dynamite in Boston. That's clearly where Mercedes Moné is arriving. They're going to call it the Bank Statement Show. They're going to heavily imply it without actually going through with it. Think CM Punk in 2011. That's probably what they're going to do here with Mercedes Moné, the former Sasha Banks. So she'll probably debut on that show. I mean, could they have her debut before then, like this month or at Revolution in early March, and have her wrestle in Boston? Yeah, it would probably make more sense to have her debut on that show, though, in Boston, and build that entire show around it. So that's probably what they're going to do. So to answer your question, literally, no, she will not debut in AEW this month. I do assume it will be next month in March, though, on that March 13th show in Boston. Justin K. from Facebook, his question was, due to the ongoing fan backlash that Dwayne, CM Punk voice, he said, is getting among the masses for overtaking Cody's spot at WrestleMania, and if WWE actually goes through with this, do you think The Rock should embrace the fans' betrayal on him, and do we get to see the return of Hollywood Rock? Should we? Yes. Will we? No. I just don't see any scenario where this Cody thing leads to like a Mania 30 situation where it's like a triple threat maybe. But again, I just feel like that's trying to appease everyone, and then in the end it just doesn't work out. Because I feel like Rock and Roman makes sense more on its own. Don't waste it in a triple threat. Same thing with Cody. I don't like the triple threat thing. That being said, like where Rock goes heel before Mania, no. Rock at this point is so, and I don't care what Meltzer says about like, oh, Rock doesn't care about the reactions he gets. Bull fucking shit. Rock is all about perception and how much people like him. He's a very likable guy, it seems like. But it seems like he's also got a big ego. And it's all about the image and the appearance and how he comes across in wrestling. He's been a babyface, and he's always been people like him, but he hasn't been a heel in 20 years for a reason, because he cares about the image and the public image and stuff like that. He might feel like if he does a heel thing in WWE, it could hurt his chances doing other stuff. I don't know about sponsorships and stuff like that, but, partnerships, or maybe eventually running for office, which I don't really care to see personally, but, stuff like that. I don't know if you would want to do that. I don't know if there's any real correlation there. That's just me overthinking it, but I don't feel like we're ever going to get heel Rock again. And at the end of the day, you and I might be annoyed about the whole situation. I don't know if it's the majority. I heard the crowd on Raw, even some of the people chanting, "We want Cody," may not be anti-Rock. That's the thing. They might just wanted to cheer both Rock and Cody. They might not boo Rock. There might be enough people who like The Rock, and there's a lot of people who like The Rock. Most people like The Rock, where it's just going to be impossible to turn him heel. And he also may not have it the same way that he did 20 years ago. If he's coming out making fucking dick jokes, which I know he always did, but he's out here making dick jokes in 2024 with gender and shit, bro. You need to go back to some real creative material here. And I don't know if he's going to have it any more as a heel than he did as a baby. Than he's had as a babyface every time he's come back since, 2011. And I enjoy The Rock, but the shtick is tired with the same old, we're going to do it for America and goosebumps. And it's like the Rock bingo card. If you took a shot every time he said the same shit on Twitter or on Instagram or all this other sort of stuff, you'd be dead. Because he does the same thing every time. "Oh, it's great to be back with my family." That's check 1. Got goosebumps, check 2. Long-term storytelling, check 3. And then none of it is even remotely true. It's cool to see The Rock back, yes. But when he's out there, and I don't know, man. I just don't get it. I don't think he's going to go heel. I feel like that would be the logical direction to go in at some point. But he's almost too big of a star where I feel like he probably won't want to. And for that reason, we won't get it. But ideally, would it be cool? Would I want to see it? Absolutely. We move on to the Twitter questions in here, and we're fucking almost an hour in. So that just goes to show you how stacked the show is as far as the questions go. We won't spend too long on these, but at Reborn again, John Ritland mentioned it before, from the YouTube machine and Twitter machine and YouTube machine at Real Honesty with John Ritland on YouTube. Check him out. His first question here was, what would have helped this whole Cody Roman Rock debacle? Don't have Cody win the Royal Rumble and then have him work his way back into the main event scene. Agree or disagree? Yeah, that would have made more sense. Now, obviously, what makes the most sense is having Cody win the Rumble and then face Roman at Mania 40 and win the championship, obviously. But that would have made more sense than what we're getting right now. Cody wins the Rumble and then willingly doesn't choose Roman. That's fucking stupid. And if they go back on it, that's not because that was the plan. It's because they heard the fans and they're like, yeah, it's probably a pretty dumb decision doing what we're doing. But I don't expect that anyway. But yeah, have Cody lose the Rumble, which I honestly was hoping Punk would win anyway. He got hurt, so it doesn't even really matter. But if Cody doesn't win the Rumble, then you don't have that issue of, he's not. Why would he choose Roman? If he doesn't win the Rumble, it makes more sense why Rock could just step in and face Roman. If Cody, he can't earn a match with Roman. I mean, he could win Elimination Chamber, but if Rock was already stepping in, he can't compete for the Chamber. Ergo, he's not getting the rematch with Roman at WrestleMania. It would have been dumb, but it would have made more sense than what we got this past week, where he wins the Rumble, says, "I'm coming for you, Roman," and then he doesn't come for Roman, and we don't get the match. Just dumb. His next question, non-wrestling related, but are you planning to watch Madam Web in theaters? Early feedback ain't exactly great, and even Dakota Johnson doesn't sound enthusiastic in any interview she's done for it. Yeah, the movie looks like it's going to be ass. I mean, these Sony movies, man, are just all over the place. I like the Venom movies, and it's so weird. Across the Spider-Verse is amazing. The Venom movies I liked. Morbius sucked, and this doesn't look good either. And Craven does not look good, all that great either. I am definitely going to go see it. I don't know if we'll see it on Valentine's Day. That's when it comes out next Wednesday. I would love to. I don't know if we'll have a chance to. I definitely do want to see it to see how potentially bad it's going to be. So, yes, I will be seeing that movie. At J. Alex Ferrans, Jay from Twitter, his question was, with the inclusions of Mr. T, MGK in 2K22, Bad Bunny and Zeus in 2K23, and Muhammad Ali in 2K24, which non-wrestler would you like to see in future iterations of the franchise? It's a good question. Which non-wrestler? You know what? They've had absolutely nothing to do with wrestling but The Weeknd. He's in the fucking... I mean, listen, MGK has rarely been involved with wrestling. I know he's performed at Mania, Kevin Owens powerbombed him one time. Cool. But he was still in the game because he performed a song in the soundtrack for 2K22. I would have him. I would have The Weeknd in 2K24, 2K25, because he's done the WrestleMania theme song. He hasn't been there, but he's been they've used one of his songs for every Mania for the past 5 years, dating back to WrestleMania 20 in 2020. Or WrestleMania, 36 in 2020. So why the fuck not? Use The Weeknd. If not The Weeknd, he's had nothing to do with WWE in years, in like 10 years. Hugh Jackman. Just because I fucking love Hugh Jackman, it would be cool to see him in a WWE game. I mean, they used Arnold in a WWE game like 10 years ago, and he was in the Hall of Fame that year. Put Hugh Jackman in the Hall of Fame and put him in one of the fucking games. Same thing with like Bob Barker or something. I feel like that'd be fun. At Iwagu91, your thoughts on Dolph Ziggler's performance in the 2014 Survivor Series event? What a fucking random question. He had a great performance that night. I reviewed the pay-per-view years ago, so I mean, you can hear my full thoughts on it there. They made him out to be a star in that match, which was just the story of Ziggler's career. They make him out to look like a star for one night, and they fail to follow up on it, and then he's just a fucking loser after that. That was no exception. They made him out to be a breakout star that night. He had a pretty good, following few weeks, and then they made him out to look like a total loser, and they just never did anything with him whatsoever after that in the weeks and months that followed. He was far from like a main event guy. They didn't capitalize on it again, because that was never the intent, but they should have capitalized, and they didn't. They didn't care. That moment was huge. But he did have a great performance that night. Ziggler's had a lot of great Survivor Series performances, more than people probably remember. His second question, your thoughts on the WWE Network set to come to an end after 10 years. I mean, to me, it died in 2021, because I have not had it here in the States since 2021, so I already kind of mourned the loss of the network at that point. But I will say this, it was cool getting the network back when I was in Canada for Elimination Chamber exactly a year ago, not today, but like next week, with Mr. Marceau. I signed up for the network and used it while we were there. It was pretty fucking awesome. No ads, all the pay-per-views nicely organized, much better than Peacock. Ah, man, I missed that. I missed the network. The network was fun, but those days are dead. Back to J. Alex Ferran's, his question was, if WWE does correct course and have Cody challenge Reigns at Mania, how would you feel if Damian Priest announced his Money in the Bank would be used against Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship? So here's the thing I don't like about that. Damian Priest is a heel. He's not going babyface. He has shown no signs of going babyface anytime soon. He's not facing Rollins for the World Championship at Mania. Now, could he cash in at Mania? Yes, he could cash in at Mania. I still don't think he will. But he won't announce it ahead of time. That doesn't make sense. And Rollins and Priest is not a Mania match. I'm sorry. We've already seen the match before. That's not a Mania match. So I don't even actually like that idea either. I'm not even convinced Priest would win if it's not like a surprise cash-in. I would rather see McIntyre in that spot, and then maybe Priest can cash in that match. I don't know. And then McIntyre gets fucked again. I don't know. But that's what I would do. I also think the Mania match is going to be Priest and Balor against Awesome Truth. Because they're already setting up the number one content. They already set up like what the tag title match is going to be for Elimination Chamber, and it ain't going to be Awesome Truth. They're not involved in that match, which tells me they're saving their title win for Mania. So I think the payoff to the big R-Truth thing will be him and Miz winning the tag titles, and Priest might cash in again on night 2, but I just don't see it happening. So that is what I see happening at Mania. I think Rollins would be better off facing McIntyre instead, or Cody in the three-way, which, again, I don't really want to see, but that's just the reality of the situation. At Iwagu91, back to them real quick. Do you see Bayley versus Io Sky headlining night 1 of WrestleMania? No, I don't. Could it? Yes. Would it be cool? Yes. I think whatever Rollins does will main event. I think if it's going to be Rollins and Rhodes, or Rollins, Rhodes, and McIntyre, I do see that main eventing over Bayley and Io. But if Bayley and Io main evented, hey, listen, Bayley won the Women's Rumble. He should headline WrestleMania. Then, yeah, they probably won't. So, I'm not expecting it, but it would be cool. Last question from @noob_n_co.tv. Your thoughts on the Damage Control betrayal this past Friday on SmackDown. I believe it was perfect booking, or perfect timing, rather, for the turn to happen, but will Dakota Kai side of the Kabuki Warriors and the Io Sky or Bayley? I thought the SmackDown segment was great. I mentioned that in my SmackDown review last week. I thought they did a great job with that and executing it, and it got buried and overshadowed by the Rock Roman Road stuff, but it was still a great segment. As far as who Dakota Kai will align with, probably Kabuki Warriors and Io, I assume she was left out on purpose because they want to tell that story with whose side is Dakota on. She's been there for every other appearance of Damage Control for the past 6 months, so why would she not be there for that? I feel like that was done on purpose. The one episode she misses is that one. Come on. So they're probably going to spend the next month or so telling the story, whose side is she on. I think Dakota could be cleared soon and Bayley faces Dakota at Elimination Chamber or, whatever. I don't know. I think Dakota will stay with Damage Control, partially due to the fact they might need a mouthpiece. Asuka, Io, and Kyrie, their English isn't the greatest. It's not bad, but they might want to use Dakota as their mouthpiece. And unless Dakota's going babyface, which I would love to see back at some point, it's been way too long. It's been almost 5 fucking years, and she's a great babyface. I think she's probably going to stay heel, stay with them, and be their mouthpiece. So that's what I expect happening. And that's going to do it, guys, for today's hashtag AskGSM, episode 532. As I mentioned, over an hour of audio yet again. Do not get used to it. But then again, it's the road to WrestleMania. Shit is happening literally every fucking week. So I'm not sure we're going to get a break here between now and Mania, if not after that either. But, listen, it's never a bad time to be answering great questions from you fine folks. If you want to send in questions to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. Last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video, and I'll include your question in next week's edition. So that's it, folks. Have an awesome rest of your week. We'll see what the news brings for next week. Like I said earlier, check out WrestleRant Radio for more thoughts on Rock, Roman, and Rhodes. That whole debacle like we were talking about. Not tomorrow per usual, but on Friday. Tomorrow, actually, my interview with Bianca Belair and Montez Ford talking their new Love and WWE show on Hulu will be dropping here on the channel. So keep an eye out for that. But on Friday, WrestleRant Radio, getting into all of this and so much more. Have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.